Welcome to another episode of Comics, Beer, and Sci-Fi. We're reporting live from Time Travelers in Berkley, Michigan, the epitome of collectibles and comic book stores all around the world, where we all started our little bitty fandoms and geekdoms and everything else. There are more things that you can buy here than eBay has ever thought of or hoped to find that is related to comic books, gaming, and everything else. After being at a Comic-Con where everybody's brought everything out of every attic and basement they could possibly find for 10,000 people to come and rifle through, sometimes you have to put your hands on it, and this is the place to do it. Guys, what are your memories of, how did you start? Do you ever come to a place? Have you ever been here before? Nick, what do you think?
Oh yeah, you know, before eBay came along, I used to come to the store because I used to collect Mego superhero action figures that I grew up with. I played with these in the 70s as a kid, and before eBay, you'd have to find these things. So I'd go to the comic shows, I'd go to a place like this, and it was awesome because he had them, he'd take trade for them. So I've been coming here for maybe 15 years. My first, and I grew up kind of in the tail end of the Bronze Age, so I used to get my comic books from 7-Eleven. My mom worked at a bookstore, but then it was when the comic store direct sales kind of transition came along. So then I did start going to Comics Corner, was in Roseville, and they also have a store right by my house in Rochester Hills. So I used to go to them, and you pay them a monthly fee, and they'll put your books aside for you. And yeah, and that was great. So that was kind of the next step when comic book buyers were really starting to be taken seriously as a market. So yeah, these kind of stores are awesome, and always come if you can.
Zoe?
Well, my first experience at a comic book store was in Illinois, and I literally could walk to it. So I would walk to it very often, and I love going to comic book stores because it really helped me learn more about comics and like get the comics that I want, like my Miss Marvel comics and everything like that. But also one of my favorite comic book stores is actually in Cambridge. In Massachusetts, and they have a whole basement of dollar comics and like literally everything ever, and you just like can sit there for hours and hours and hours and just buy a bunch of comics.
So you're a box rifler.
Yes, I love that because you find such beautiful like covers and like art that way.
Do you keep your books bagged and boarded at home?
Yes, I do. I have them next to my prized book possessions. I have a whole section of comic books.
Very good. Chris?
Well, you know, I started buying comic books probably in the very early 1990s. There's a Captain America comic book that I got from what used to be called Perry Drugs. It's now a Rite Aid. And, you know, it wasn't until the early mid 1990s. It was a place called Comics Plus or Comic Zone in Dearborn on Michigan Avenue. It later became Green Brain Comics. And when I first went into a comic book store, I like walked into Alicia. Yeah, I walked into. I could not believe it's a saying of mine. They had stuff that I wanted that I never knew I wanted until I saw it. And that's what it was like for me at a comic book store. And then being in this place, Time Travelers, just looking around, I feel like a crackhead that just did a swan dive into a big vat of crack. And I'm just doing a back stroke, I'm doing a breaststroke.
So you're a big fan of comic books.
Yeah, needless to say.
I think we've all had that moment where you go to your favorite comic book store and you see 6 or 8 new bins that weren't there the other day. And you ask the owner, goes, oh yeah, I just got these off of somebody retired or had to buy a car and sold 10,000 books, and they're all about 50 cents a piece. Go crazy. And you go through and you somehow manage to fill in everything you have.
Yeah.
It is absolutely the greatest feeling to get that book that you've been, the elusive book in everything that you go, is that what happened? I'm afraid to read them sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think we're all in agreement that there's nothing like putting your hands on it before you buy it.
Exactly.
So, cheers to that one.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Nice.
To comic book stores.
Indeed.
The lifeblood of the comic book industry.
Indeed.